Hello and welcome back to Rams Talk Podcast. And we're here today with another Rams Talk introducing because we've got a new player through the door. It is Matt Clarke. I mean, he might look a little bit familiar because, he's been here before. He's our ex-player of the year in the 1920 season. He was very, very good for us on loan from Brighton. And this time he's here to stay. Kind of. He's only here for 5 months on his current contract, but we'll get onto that a little bit later on. Joining me today to talk all about Derby's new signing is a guy you'll be familiar with already. It's Jonny from the Boro Breakdown Podcast. How are you, Jonny?
I'm very well, Jay. Thank you so much for having me on. Really good to speak to you again. And I'm really looking forward to chatting about Matt Clarke.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was going to ask you, I guess, first off, what's changed with Matt Clarke? First thing I've got to bring up, where's his hair gone? What's happened there?
Well, it was it's Teesside hair. It's really got to him. But we did sign him bald. So he hasn't lost it. He hasn't lost it from there. But no, it's made him look like 10 years older, hasn't it? Really, unfortunately for him. But I still can't believe he's in his 20s, to be honest. But he has been injured for the last couple of years, so maybe the stress of that he's just kind of kept it bald from there.
Oh God! Before we get onto the, the injury side of things, let's talk about Matt Clarke as a player. Obviously played for Derby on loan for 2 years from Brighton Hove Albion, then had a year at West Brom, and then signed permanently by Middlesbrough. What was sort of your reaction when you brought him in on a permanent deal?
I was really happy when we brought him in, actually, because he's been player of the year for every single club that he's played at least got it once, and. We thought that we've brought in a centre-back under Chris Wilder at the time who can play out from the back. And also, how cool is it going to be to see someone who's over 6 foot do an overlapping centre-back? And we've seen it against Swansea, and it was fantastic to watch. I really enjoyed it. But we were delighted to have him in, and we thought that him playing on the left-hand side of a back three would work so well. And unfortunately for Matt Clarke, he sustained a back injury and was out for about 12 to 18 months. And it really hampered, his time at the club because you're out for so long. But what I would say is that from that December onwards to the end of to now, he's been absolutely brilliant. And you've got a fantastic signing. But yeah, I was really happy to have him in. Quite sad to see him go.
Yeah, it seems quite strange, actually. And obviously, it makes sense him coming back to Derby. He spent a couple of years here. He obviously knows the club, knows the fans, knows what it's about. Very similar ground, so he probably won't feel too lost about that. But what was sort of the feeling with Boro fans and yourself when you heard that Matt Clarke was sort of linked with Derby and obviously seeing the deal go through? I know you've got some problems at centre-back already with injuries. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, that injury point was okay. So we probably are bringing in another centre back or two in the window, which is going to make us very busy because a lot of players seem to be leaving all of a sudden. The second part of it is Matt Clarke is a good defender. He's been solid for us, but I can totally understand why he would want to leave because he's just not getting the game time. And for someone who's been out for so long, it's imperative that you do get minutes again and start to enjoy your football. And when we're looking at Matt Clarke's time at the club, he came back in the December of not this season, the season before. I was going to say last December, but it's January now. He came back against Leeds and got rinsed, and we were like, oh God, he's good. This could be a bit disastrous for Matt Clarke. But ever since then, he's been fantastic, really reliable, hasn't had anything wrong, hasn't made too many mistakes, really consistent, had a big run of games. We had to manage him, manage him in a way to get him back up to speed. But for the most part, brilliant, in the top 9% for interceptions, I think, for the last year. He was our top scorer at one point at the start of the season, and he is still very, very good on the ball. So I think you've got a cracking signing in Matt Clarke. He just needed game time. I'm intrigued by the move to the end of the season, but I mean, we might have something planned elsewhere, but just needed game time. And if he can keep Derby in the league this year, then why couldn't he extend it a little bit longer? But yeah, what a fantastic player that you've got. I just can't believe that we've let him go to some aspect, but it must mean that we're bringing more players in.
Yeah, you'd think so, wouldn't you?
I hope
Although
so.
Derby have a habit of letting players go and not replacing them. This is probably the first time we've let someone go and actually replace them in quite some time, with Aaron Cashin on his way to Brighton, probably as we speak. But I want to talk about his progression, Jonny. I know you talked about he was out for so long with that back injury. He's come back into the team and he's made an impression. But in recent times, he hasn't really got the game time. Is that just due to the performances of personnel ahead of him?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, when we're looking at who's been in front of him, Rav van den Berg has been our best defender by some distance, and he's only, I think he might be 19, still 19, just turned to 20. So still a very, very young player who is just thriving at centre half. Dale Fry has been consistent there. Again, had injuries himself. And we've had George Edmondson, who's just came in now on a permanent from Ipswich to, play ahead of him again at times because he's just been consistent. So I feel like he's been unlucky on those things. Definitely not bad quality. I think he's been very, very good. I think he's just been unfortunate in certain moments. He's picked up an injury where he's been playing well. And it's just things that haven't really worked out for him. And it's such a shame. It really is such a shame. But you do have a great player. And I know I've said it a couple of times, you do have a really good player on your hands. And I know you've seen it. But yeah, he's evolved. He's got better. He's become more wise. And it's just, I think he will help solidify things again for Derby at the back as well. And I know you're after someone else from our team who we might come into that a little bit later on. But yeah, I think he's just been really unfortunate, brutally honest, really unfortunate.
Yeah, and I guess coming into Derby, we're in a position where Aaron Cash, as I said, is on his way to Brighton. Curtis Nelson's out with an ACL injury. We've had to play a mishmash of defences in recent games. We had a game recently where we had 0 centre-backs on the pitch. We played a back three with 2 left-backs and a centre-mid. Nice. That's sort of the position that we're in. Is he ready to come and step straight into this Derby team?
Yeah, 100%. He's ready.
Yeah.
He's ready. He's fit. Just hadn't had the game time over the last couple of weeks, but when he's had to come in, he's been absolutely fine. He can still plow out from the back if you need to. He's comfortable on the ball. He's got a good switch on him in terms of passing. So, and he's good in the box. So, I think he's more than ready to jump in, and he'll fit the system. And Derby fans are aware of him and know how good he can be. I think you see more of the potential side of him the last time around, but now you're starting to see more of the finished article to him, and it's really solid, really solid. And you might consider his pace a problem. I don't think it has been. I think he's been positionally very good, so he hasn't been taken on too much. But when we're looking at teams like Leeds, and teams who have really good pace in and around it, he can get caught out. But the reason why he gets caught out is just due to how we play. That left-hand side for us is very advanced. It gets exposed by our midfielders because they're coming more centrally, which may leave Clarke a bit exposed. So a back three would make more sense for us, but we don't play that. So therefore, if you do see defensive errors in his game, if you look on Wisecout or whatever platform you look at and look at his time at Middlesbrough, most of the times errors aren't his fault. It's just something that's happened 2 or 3 steps beforehand, which has leaves him exposed. But for the most part, great positioning and can come into the team and be ready.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want to hear. And yeah, I think it's interesting as well that, Derby rarely leave the edge of their own box. So, I don't think too many teams will run in behind him, because I don't think you could get much deeper than we are at times, as you very well know from earlier this season, very, very well. And I guess my one question to you is, I know you've kind of mentioned it already, but it's to do with aspects of the game that need work. You mentioned pace. Is that pretty much it? Is he a pretty solid Championship defender apart from that?
Yeah, pretty solid. For a big guy, his aerial duels are all right. I think he's won about 65, 70% of them, which is still good enough. You're only 30% of the time missing out on it. Clearing blocks wise, he's middle of the road for, but completely that's more of
it's all system based, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of the stuff system based on where someone takes that shot and all counts. But the things that you're looking for: tackles, interceptions, tackle percentage, he ranks quite highly, and you have no issues. He's just a really big lump of a defender, but also good with his feet. So it's like, it's great to have all that, right? So in terms of development of game, you can always look at that passing aspect of it now, how it's like developing in this game, and how a lot of teams will try and plow from the back. But given Derby don't really do that, it masks that to some extent. And if you do get this player that we also want to talk about a little bit later on, that might help things from a passing standpoint. But for the most part, really solid. There'll always be something that a football fan will pick up on and say, he turns like a bus. He's not fast enough. Why is he doing a Cruyff turn into his box? Which he does do. But you're going to have all of that. But I think all of his strengths as a defender masks any weaknesses that he has. So I'll probably put it back to you. Come back to me in a few weeks to see what you think. But I think you just got a really solid player. And I know I've said it a couple of times, but I'm quite happy that he's got time to progress his career again. But yeah, I just don't see there's any real glaring issues apart from like the maybe the pace element. But like you said, you sit on your own edge of your box. Not many people getting in behind others, so you should be okay for that one.
Well, that's good to hear. And one final question for you, Jonny. Thank you for your time. Do you think he'll succeed at Derby? And also a little extra question: do you think he'll score against Boro towards the end of the season?
Yes, to both of those questions, Jake. Both of those questions. Rips his shirt off, starts doing Ravanelli, and just does a So he's bound to score against us, and I think he'll be a success. Very short contract, which I'm a bit bewildered by, but who knows on that side of things? Who knows? Because when I seen it permanent, and then you said, "Oh, 24, 25," I was like, "Is it really?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh no, it is!" And I was like, "Oh my god!" So I don't know how he's managed to wrangle that, but I guess we'll see come the summer. Maybe he didn't want to sign a long-term deal just due to the threat of relegation, maybe, and having to move again, or he's just keeping his options open. But I think he'll be a success at Derby, and I think he's 100% going to score for Derby in the 1-0 win later on in the season.
Mate, we'll take what we can get. We absolutely will at this point. I mean, to be fair, on the contract, my personal theory is that I think he signed a contract with a clause where if we stay up, it triggers an extra year. If we go down, he's free to go. So that's my personal thoughts on what his contract's set up like. Because, it's very weird, isn't it? Why wouldn't we just sign him on loan? Well, I suppose we've got loads of loans as well, so we'd have to probably terminate one of them. Who knows? Who knows? Derby's weird signings have gone on for years. We've had so many in recent years, so I doubt it'll end now. But thank you so much for listening. If you did enjoy, please do leave a like, please subscribe. You know what to do by now. Jonny, thank you very much for joining us. People want to find more of you, more of Boro Breakdown. Where will they find you?
Just search for Boro Breakdown on your podcast provider, on YouTube and on social, and you'll find us from there.
Good stuff. I can vouch. They are very good. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for joining me, Jonny. We'll see you soon.
Cheers, Jack.